Okay.
Yeah, like I said, look into the Google, into the YouTube live events, because once after it streams, it just uploads it automatically.
Yeah, this is what this is supposed to do too, but like I said, I don't know if this program's going to work right, so I'll have to look into that. Hello there once again, and welcome to the Film Buffet Podcast. I'm your resident film buff, Tom, and with me today is Robb Gallo. How are you doing?
Oh, doing fantastic. Thanks, Tom.
Oh, that's good. That's all that matters, I guess. So, the news. Big news going around.
And now the news.
So I'm going to play this clip here real quick.
Those movies
We're going
will
to talk
all
about
take
it.
place in the world that we are now creating for Peter Parker. I mean, there'll be adjuncts to it. They may be different locations, but it will still all be in the same world, and they will be connected to each other as well.
So there is a chance that Tom Holland as Spider-Man will pop up somewhere
There's
over
a
there.
chance.
There's always a chance.
There's always a chance. I think one of the things that Kevin has done with Marvel that's was so brilliant, and is by bringing the fans along and making each movie seem like a chapter in a book that you have to read that chapter in order to go forward. And I think the investment that the fans get to feel in being part of a larger story and understanding what's happening, I think is something that I know Sony would want to emulate.
Oh yeah, so our favorite producer, Amy Pascal, had an interview on what seemed to be a press junket for Spider-Man Homecoming with Marvel leader Kevin Feige, and during the interview she dropped some news that Venom was now going to be part of the MCU, most likely, and there's even a possibility of Tom Holland showing up in future films. What's your reaction to this, Mr. Gallo?
My reaction is always the same when I hear Amy Pascal say anything. I just want to bash my head against the screen and say, just stop talking, please. Just stop talking. Right. I don't doubt at some point that some other characters from the Spider-Verse are going to migrate over to the MCU. But we were talking about this off air quite a while, and it seems like this is a move to sort of put some leverage on Marvel.
Right. I said there's only like one or two scenarios, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that they're going to try to play spoiler, or they're going to try to work out a better deal for themselves. Your thoughts on that? Or
well, as I was saying before, I think that either Marvel walked in and said, what the hell do you think you're doing trying to start a universe without us? They were probably already upset as it was about this animated film. I think we both expressed that we thought that they probably weren't that happy about Sony deciding to go forward with an animated film outside of the Marvel universe and all that kind of stuff to flood the market with even more Spider-Man than there already is. And then to add in the fact that Amy come out not even a month ago and said that this was just a one-time deal after the sequels. We don't know if it'll continue to, go forward with Marvel. So this was just for the fans, blah, 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 blah. At the same time, on the deep dark web, I was hearing a rumor that Sony was playing with the idea of bringing an older Spider-Man into its own Venom universe and have him being played by Tobey Maguire, and it'd be actually an extension of those films. But I think that was just bullshit, or just a card they were playing to get Marvel to come out and either agree to work with them on this cinematic universe with Black Cat, Silver Sable, and Venom to help them coordinate it with the Marvel Universe to make it more successful by possibly even threatening them with litigation by saying, well, if you're not going to support this universe, then you're basically putting us in a position where we're losing money because of it, because you won't allow that. Or, like you said, that's where it comes in the leverage. Or, like I was saying before, that Marvel just come in, kind of slapped their hands and said, wait a minute, what the hell you think you're doing with our character? Because as we know from the email leaks before, They didn't listen to any of Kevin Feige's notes. So there's a possibility that within the contract that if they are starting to make the character look bad, or they fail on certain levels, or don't listen to Marvel on certain things, they may be able to pull some vetoes on them and kind of, take over the game, so to speak, I guess. But I mean, those are the only couple scenarios that I can really see here. But I'm kind of going more so with Sony just kind of hijacked the situation and basically manipulated Marvel into saying, yes, we're going to do this. Because if you look at Kevin Feige's face, either he's completely unsure of what the hell she's talking about, he's surprised because she's not supposed to be talking about it, or he's lost like most of us when she talks.
I tend to think it's the last. Like, what the hell is she saying?
Is that a sentence? I'm not sure that last thing was a word, but okay, that was a slur. Not a racial slur or anything like, but just a slur. No. And it's
Kevin.
We can speculate what kind of medication she's on or what she's been drinking, but we don't want to, because then we'd possibly get ourselves in trouble. But it's safe to say she's a very difficult person to understand when she's trying to elaborate on a situation.
I imagine that she's a difficult person to deal with personally too. I've never met her. I don't know her. All I know is her reputation, and from what I read. But it doesn't seem like that she's very easy to deal with on a professional level.
No, it doesn't seem to be. And I mean, pretty much now she's gotten to the point where she's not much more than a glorified assistant, in a way, to basically be a go-between Sony and Marvel, it sounds like, which I can't believe that's the one person they picked to do so, but I'm assuming just because of contracts and whatnot, she's still involved because of that. Otherwise, she has no power at Sony anymore. So it's
her name's on the movies, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, she's basically trying to use this for all it's worth. Why she's even out on the campaign is beyond me. If I was both Sony and Disney, I'd be like, put that woman in a room and keep her the hell away from cameras and reporters at this point. Because, I don't know, she's just making the whole situation look dumb. Because even the way Kevin Feige looks in the video, it's becoming the latest meme about, how sad Affleck was a meme a year ago when everybody was coming down so hard on Batman v Superman. His face is priceless, because you just got to sit there and wonder what the hell is going through this guy's head right now.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking what's going through his head now is like WTF. That's all I can see.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm speechless myself thinking about it.
Okay, so let's go ahead. No.
I think we pretty much covered it. I mean, really.
Well, I was going to say, do you think it's more so that he was upset because she wasn't supposed to be saying something, or do you think it's more so that just the way she's saying it didn't make sense at the time, or she, maybe they didn't have this deal set yet, perhaps?
I think it's I think that he was taken by surprise. I'm like, wait a minute, what the hell is she talking about? We never agreed to this. I think that's
very possible, but they haven't released any retractions whatsoever. Nobody from Disney or Sony has come out and spoke about it since, and it's been going around the internet like wildfire. This is big news to everybody, because it wasn't even, a couple weeks ago, they were like, nope, Venom is not going to be a part of this new Spider-Man universe or the MCU. And now all of a sudden, yep, he is, and they are. Kind of like the whole DC thing back, Ben Affleck's directing Batman. No, I'm not directing Batman. It's like, make up your mind, people. What is it?
Yeah, it probably wasn't. They probably weren't ready to reveal it yet. Then
that would be my guess. Is a very good possibility. But then, does that speak more to then? Okay, Marvel kind of stepped in and said, okay, this is what we're going to do because you guys are going to fuck this up, and we know you are, or you're just doing this on purpose. Or like I said, did they say, well, if you don't help us, we're going to release the movie, but if it fails, we're going to blame you. As in, they're going to blame Marvel for it not failing, or for the film not performing because they refused to allow it to be part of the cinematic universe.
Yeah, the last one sounds pretty feasible. That where oh well, Marvel didn't want to include this in their universe, and so it didn't have sort of the Marvel stamp of approval on it.
Right, and they were already basically setting themselves up into a position to where they were going to be able to trick a lot of the film-going audience into thinking it was, even if it wasn't. And that's something that Beyond and I had talked about, and I'm sure you guys probably touched on a little bit in your roundtable for the Spider-Man Venom Midnight's Edge video coming up. And I'm sure you guys talked about how Sony's, at that point, they weren't going to be in the same universe, so we knew Sony was going to milk that Marvel logo for all they could and try to manipulate people into thinking it was part of the universe, even if it wasn't.
Yeah. I think it's part of, like I said, that could be making that distinction. That's why Marvel changed the logo, actually, this past year. They added Marvel Studios to the
right.
To the official logo, so people would be able to make that distinction more readily.
Right, and I was going to say, and if it just says Marvel, that's the ones that are produced without the Marvel Studios involved. But if it says Marvel Studios, that's when they're technically involved. Correct, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right. Okay. So, and yeah, I seen the new logo in front of. I'm sure if you guys have seen Guardians of the Galaxy, the new logo is in front of that. It looks pretty neat, pretty close to the original, but a little bit different. I wasn't too impressed by DC's new logo, nor was I impressed by Universal's new logo. I don't know if you've seen either one of those yet, but
I haven't seen the Universal one. I think I've seen the DC one.
It looks a lot like the opening for Justice League cartoon.
DC Films logo. Let me take a look at that while I got a chance, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's fine. No, I'm not sure if that one's even up yet. I know the Universal one is, but the Universal one I can explain to you. It's real easy. It's pretty stupid. It's just a bunch of scenes from the old classic horror movies for about a minute and a half, and then it goes into a Universal logo, but it says Dark Universe instead of Universal.
Okay. Yeah, that is kind of dumb. I mean, don't overthink the logo, please.
Right. Yeah, it's just a logo. Come on, guys.
I know, and they pay big bucks to have people design those. They put a lot of market research into that.
But if you look at it, prior to this, how many studios have really done a lot of change to their logo? Really?
Not many. Paramount's pretty much been the same for the last 30 years.
They all got a CGI upgrade about 20 years ago. That's about it.
Yeah.
And they all were pretty much the same. Even Warner Brothers went from their worm back to the shield because the worm looked stupid. If you know what I'm talking about, the little W worm looking thing.
Oh yeah.
With the red circle around it, yeah. That only lasted a few years for Warner Brothers. That was the closest they came to changing their logo. MGM's been the same forever. Disney's been fairly the same, even though they got their CGI upgrade of the same version. But it's just. Don't overthink the logo. That's a good thing. But here we are with the Spider-Man situation and Venom, actually. And now they also announced here a little while back that it was going to be R-rated. And this kind of goes on the coattails of another report that Kevin Feige said there's no need for an R-rated film in the Marvel Universe as of right now. But that doesn't mean that's never going to happen.
Yeah. This comes back to overthinking it. I think they're going to try to overdo it. It's look, Logan was R-rated, Deadpool was R-rated. We need something R-rated.
Right, and they already do kind of have their own little R-rated universe on the Netflix shows, which are far more violent than any of the other comic book films. Even some of the R-rated comic book films I've seen, they're even more violent than, because even though Sin City is violent, but that's in black and white, so it's even a little bit more jarring. Just recently I'm trying to finish up Iron Fist, and there's the scene where the guy's head gets hacked into with the sword and all that kind of stuff. And even going back to Daredevil, I know we were talking about how just there was the scene where I said where Fisk takes the guy's head and slams it in the door, and then there was another one you were talking about that was a lot more violent than you were expecting.
Yeah, where Daredevil was getting information out of one of Kingpin's lackeys, and he throws himself onto a jagged piece of metal, like a wrought iron railing or something like that.
Right, and I mean, there's extreme gore in these shows compared to the other films.
I mean, that's not to say that there isn't room for an R-rated Marvel film. There definitely is, but it has to be the right film. The one I can picture that would be a natural fit for an R rating is probably Blade.
Right, and he's been talked about quite a bit. Or
Yeah.
the daughter of Blade, either way. But then, like, you know, you got some people out there, they're like, oh, but Disney will never allow them to do an R-rated film. It's like, do you guys remember that Disney used to have a company called Dimension, Miramax, all these little companies that the Weinsteins ran that had all kinds of R-rated films, including like Clerks and every Quentin Tarantino movie for years and years and years, and 90% of their roster was either horror on the Dimension side or, you know, R-rated adult fare on the Miramax side. So Disney's not against that. They will do it as long as Marvel keeps it to their banner. Now, the question will be, will Disney allow it to really be in that universe? I think so, because Daredevil and them are still in the same universe.
Yeah. Yeah, and don't forget, Touchstone Pictures too was another Disney imprint. They had quite a few R-rated movies.
Well, and that was the whole point of starting. That's the first point that Disney said, well, we need to come up with something for adults. So that's when they did start Touchstone back in the early 80s, and I think it was either Katzenberg or somebody else was involved with that too. But
why do I want to say Fred Weintraub? I don't know.
He might have been. Either way, but like you're right. They were very successful by spinning off an adult brand with Touchstone, and even though most people had no idea it was related to Disney, it was. It was. They're all under the Buena Vista banner, basically. So, but anyway, back to Venom, and to kind of finish up there, it just goes like, okay, so if it's going to be an R-rated movie, that's still a possibility. Will it have Tom Holland involved? I don't know. That's where the whole he might show up thing, she said. So what is this kind of consisting of? Because that's what I kind of wondered was if they were going to push off Venom. Like, I thought maybe they'd try this Black Cat and Silver Sable movie, especially since Wonder Woman did well. And since that doesn't have to necessarily probably be as attached to Spider-Man as Venom does, if you get what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and you can sort of keep Black Cat, Silver Sable sort of separate. You keep it adjacent, but not really a part of the Marvel Universe proper.
But unlike Venom, where you actually need Spider-Man to kind of give Venom a lot of his powers, in a lot of ways, that's something they're going to have to work around otherwise. And that's probably where they came to a roadblock. And that's probably where, even if the one side is true, where Marvel came in and said, what do you guys think you're going to be able to do and give this guy spider-like powers and not have Spider-Man in the universe? And they probably went, well, we're just going to put Spider-Girl in there or something, or Spider-Woman in there or something like that, or the Tobey Maguire thing. And that's probably when Marvel went, no, you're just going to saturate the market with too many Spider-Men. You're going to complicate the issue. You're going to confuse people. And you've already done enough of that with Amazing Spider-Man 2. So I think that's probably a big part of it too. It could have been. It's very possible. I'm sure we'll learn more down the road, but until then, of course, this is all speculation. But there's just not so many things, only so many ways this could have went. And for the reason for them to announce it like this, and then all of a sudden Amy to say this, and for over a day to go by and nobody's saying a word about it.
Yeah, I'm curious. Let me just ask, who would you like to see play Black Cat?
I don't really have anybody that I would point at, but I really say Rosario Dawson's one of my go-tos. I think she can play just about anybody. I would love to see her as Catwoman in the new universe if she wouldn't play Black Cat, or maybe somebody a little younger perhaps, but
well, initially it was supposed to be Felicity Jones.
Really?
Yeah. Well, what there was Spider. No, it was she was in Amazing Spider-Man 2, I think, or something like that.
I think she was, but they cut her out.
Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah.
She was supposed to play Mary Jane, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, no, it's just Felicia Hardy.
Oh, that's Felicia Hardy. Yeah, I'm sorry. Same name at least. But yeah, I could see. Close enough anyway. I could see Felicity Jones playing her. Yeah,
and she's already in the Disney stable too. So I mean,
yeah, that's true too. If they are going to be connected, then that's true too. Yeah, she'd be a good choice. If not,
all she got to do is walk across the hallway from Lucasfilm office to the Marvel office.
Well,
hey guys,
it's not like she's got to work at Lucasfilm anymore. Spoilers.
I was, not to get off the rails, but when I saw and again, for those who haven't seen Rogue One, that was a major bummer. It really was.
You didn't like the film?
I liked it, yeah, but it was
okay.
it was a major. The ending was just a major bummer. Like, oh, come on.
What did you expect, though? Really?
It just reminds me of there was that one scene. And I'm not a huge fan of the movie Heavy Metal or the comic Heavy Metal, but there was this one scene where somebody explains it. Then you die, she dies, everybody dies. Well, sounds reasonable to me. So okay, but moving on.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll have to wait until we hear some more news on that, I guess. In other news, then we might as well move on to. What did I have on the docket? There's this red granite situation. We can probably talk a little bit about that, but I don't want to get into it too much because I don't want to speculate on a lot of it. But if you haven't heard, Leonardo DiCaprio has recently been a big part of this and been in the news about it. He had to turn over his Marlon Brando's Oscar from On the Waterfront and a couple paintings, a Picasso, a few other art. Where was the story here? I just had it too.
Actually, wasn't the Oscar from Wolf of Wall Street? Didn't he have to turn that?
No, he got to keep that, or he didn't get that one. That was for the Revenant he won. But okay. It was a Marlon Brando one from On the Waterfront, and they made him turn it in, and a bunch of paintings, or they didn't make him turn it in. He actually did it by choice. He surrendered. It was around 4 or 5 things here. I'm trying to bring it up. Sorry, guys. I should have had it ready.
Yeah. Well, the total amount of seizures amounts to about $3.8 billion.
It was actually a little bit more than that, but yeah. They're speculating now. But the FBI has basically said that this company attached to Red Granite Pictures, which you may know for movies like Dumb and Dumber 2, Daddy's Home, which actually has a sequel coming out here. The finance company, One Malaysia Media, something like that. I can't even find it now. One MDB is what they're called. And they have been tangled up in over a year in this scandal with basically supposedly laundering Malaysian money through America that is supposed to be going to the Malaysian government. And he had to turn over Picasso, Jean-Michel Basquiat collage. What was the other name? You knew who she was because the movie was with Nicole Kidman.
Oh, Diane Arbus.
Diane, yeah.
Original Diane Arbus prints. For those who are unfamiliar with that name, Diane Arbus was an avant-garde photographer back in the I believe it was in the 40s and 50s.
Right, and each of them. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, she took a lot of really kind of abstract photos, a lot of unusual subject matter. She was very intrigued with, and Nicole Kidman played her in the biopic of her life called Fur, which was out, I think, in 2004.
Yeah, it was quite a few years ago. I had never seen it, but I do recall it after you said the name of it. I'm like, okay, yeah, I remember that movie. But yeah, so he's had to turn in all this stuff, which was roughly just what he's turned in has roughly come up close to $6 or $7 million worth of stuff, and then. The other side of it is they have these movies that have been produced with this money that supposedly was laundered money through this company, and they include like Dumb and Dumber 2, The Wolf of Wall Street, which we mentioned, Out of the Furnace with Christian Bale, Friends with Kids, Horns with what's-his-face who played Harry Potter in it.
Daniel Radcliffe.
Yep,
yeah.
Daniel Radcliffe. Daddy's Home, which has the sequel coming out here. So yeah, I mean, all these movies that were involved in it, we're assuming that the FBI is going to basically be taking these films over from here on out, and any money that is So you'll probably see them on, I think you kind of made a joke about how we'll start seeing them on cable quite a bit, probably.
Yeah, just to try to recoup whatever revenue they can for it. They'll probably get a reduced rate, and they'll probably just run the hell out of them.
Oh yeah, we'll see them everywhere, and in whatever money they need to get back to pay off. Because we kind of talked a little bit about it. We kind of figured, well, the government, the FBI is going to have to be able to get back whatever the government figures they lost in this transaction, and what monies were supposed to go to that government for their programs, and basically, because it was supposed to be an investment company, it sounds like, to invest in other countries and other things, and the money would come back into the Malaysian economy. But that's not what's happening. It sounds like there's a few people that are individuals who are using the company as a scapegoat to launder money, and they're doing it by buying all these expensive paintings and Oscars and giving them to stars and stuff. And it doesn't sound like anybody, as far as like the actual stars involved with any of these films, are involved. It's just the few people that are actually involved with the company.
No, and we should say that having a company like this give incentives or bonuses to actors really isn't all that unusual.
Right.
Yeah, and here's thank you for appearing in our film as a token of our appreciation. Please accept this, Rolex or Longines watch, valued at $30,000 or whatever it is, and
right.
Or please, we can make use of our private jet for 6 weeks, going to and from locations.
And I think that was one of the things that was talked about and listed, that obviously they're probably not going to be able to get the funds back for, were some private vacations and a few other things that members of this group used. And it wasn't just Red Granite Pictures. There's a larger company involved in this, and that's what we're talking about, is the investment company, 1MDB. They're kind of the source of the money, but they invested like hundreds of millions of dollars in Hollywood films and stuff like that. So I'm sure this is going to blow up really big, and we'll learn more about it in the future. So we don't want to speculate on it too much, but if you guys want to give your guys' thoughts down below about it, that'd be great to hear what you guys think on that.
Yeah, it sounds like this is definitely not the end of it.
Oh, no, not by a long shot. But it's been going on for a while, and it sounds like Leo did this by choice. That's the way the story reads, was he heard about the issues that the FBI was investigating the companies, that the funds had been seized up to a point, what was going on at that point, and then he just decided here this last couple weeks here to turn the stuff over, which one of the paintings was actually going to go up for auction for charity, actually. And the other thing is I know that Oscars have a lot of rules attached to them themselves, so I'm not even sure how that situation even deals. But yeah, it's kind of a sticky situation for these guys.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine it's in Leonardo DiCaprio's best interest to just cooperate with the FBI.
And that's what he's doing, yeah.
Yeah. So he's really not implicated in anything, and I don't want to say he's an innocent bystander, but like I said, these kind of deals happen all the time in Hollywood, and just this happens to be the one that has his name attached to it.
Basically, yeah. So other than that, the box office this weekend was kind of a surprise. Cars 3 come out on top, but not as well as Disney would have hoped, probably.
Yeah, Wonder Woman actually finished a strong second.
A very strong second, yeah.
And there was a third, and what was the Tupac Shakur movie came in third?
Yes, it did, and it actually was playing better per screen than the top two films, if I remember correctly, because it opened on a lot less screens and managed to pull in 27 million, or 26 according to the final numbers. The final numbers for the weekend are 53 for Cars, 41 for Wonder Woman, 26 for All Eyes on Me. The Mummy managed to pull in just under 15 with 14.5, and 47 meters down kind of flopped like the fish that it is at 11.
like a trout on the dock.
Yeah, not so much a shark, but a trout. Yeah, it didn't fare too well. Pirates dropped quite a bit, down to 8 million, but that film has done okay so far. It's managed to pull in $150 state, $150. Yeah, that'd be bad. $150 million stateside, so that's not too bad, but not as good as you would hope for a Pirates movie at this point. Wonder Woman is actually on its way to making $600 million altogether worldwide, and really creeping up on $300 million in the U.S., so that's doing very well. You could almost say it's probably tracking almost a little better at this point than what Guardians did, but Guardians had the bigger boost up front, so I'm not sure it will catch Guardians, but it's not too far from making more money than Man of Steel did already.
Actually, for a movie finishing second, if any other movie at $41 million opening would be pretty good.
Exactly. I mean, that's nothing to balk at. And I didn't really care for the film as much, and I know you haven't seen it yet, but that's a strong third weekend, even if it's at second place.
Yeah. Well, what was the drop off from this week to last week on Wonder Woman? Do you happen to know?
29.5%, so not even 30% from its second weekend, which is very good.
Yeah,
because it didn't even hit that 50% the first weekend, or from first to second.
Yeah, it's gonna have legs, this movie. So, at least until Spider-Man.
It's got about as long a legs as Miss Wonder Woman does, at least until, like you said, Spider-Man comes and he might snag him in a web. Because they're looking, speaking of Spider-Man, to not get back on that subject, but it looks like it's tracking for $100 million opening weekend. And there's a lot of people who are kind of talking down about it, like they don't think it's going to open that well, and they don't think it's going to do that well. And I'm just sitting here thinking, Spider-Man 2, or The Amazing Spider-Man 2, the last film sucked, and that still did very well. Didn't do what Sony wanted it to do, but it still did very well. And they've done a very good job to this point, making sure we know that this is part of the Marvel Universe, and this is something people have wanted for a long time. So I have a feeling Spider-Man's going to do a lot better than people think. What do you think on that?
Yeah, it has the Marvel stamp of approval on it. And like you said, they're going all out to remind you that this is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And the whole thing about people talking the movie down, it's that typical thing that happens when something is, when something gets popular. Oh, it's so totally overrated, or whatever. People all just turn against it.
Right. Well, I think some people don't even realize that Spider-Man is the biggest selling comic book character out there by far. Like, he outsells almost the rest to put together. I mean, by far.
Yeah, and there's 6 like Spider-Man related books too. I mean,
right. Well, and I'm sure he's still at the top rung as far as comic books go too, but as far as merchandising, as Mr. Mel Brooks would have said in Spaceballs, that's the thing that Spider-Man is the king of. And Disney knows how to merchandise, and they have done very well, and that's one thing that they've gotten out of Sony since this whole endeavor has begun between the two of them, is that they have the rights now to the merchandising from a couple of years back. And that's where a lot of the big money is, and that's hurting Sony bad. So that's where it kind of brings me around to wonder if maybe this whole Venom thing, and this is something I didn't bring up before, the reason, and there's some people who are also speculating this, I've seen this today, so I'm not alone on this, that just maybe by the time all this happens, these movies come out, Spider-Man will be lock, stock, and barrel owned by Marvel again anyway, because they'll have bought the franchise back from Sony.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely will have revitalized it.
Well, there's a possibility that deal's in motion, I guess, is what people are thinking.
I'm thinking there might be a secret part of the Marvel-Sony deal, where that after a certain number of movies, that Marvel may get the rights back to the character.
Well,
and just keep Sony on as a distributor.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and they did Marvel that for a while with Paramount. Yeah.
But Marvel will have complete control over the character, and just like I said, and rather than distribute the films through Buena Vista or Disney Home Video, they'll be distributed through Sony.
That's a possibility, because like when Paramount and the whole deal went down, when Marvel Studios was actually bought out by Disney, Paramount got to release some of the last few films there before the deal totally took over, and then Disney took over completely with like some of the Iron Man films and the Avengers movie and stuff like that. But anyway, but what I'm kind of more getting at is I think that with what we were talking about last week, with where Sony is sitting on the list money-wise, because they're way down the list. As far as major studios, they're dead last.
That's not a good place to be.
No, and they're dragging down their electronics department and the game department and all these other departments that are doing very well, or for the most part anyway. And I have a feeling that there is a deal that's been going on for a while and just hasn't gone down completely yet, that Marvel is in the process of possibly buying the Spider-Man franchise back, so that by the time this Venom movie comes out, by the time this Black Sable movie comes out, it'll already be underneath the Marvel banner. And you're right, they may have some deal worked out with them, but then again, it all depends on if Sony even decides to stay in the movie business. It could very well turn around that they could work out some deal with, like, okay, Disney and Marvel will give them some kind of exclusive rights to games and stuff like that, and they'll get a cut of whatever the next 6 Spider-Man related films are, or something to that effect.
Yeah, we could get a certain percentage for so many years, and yeah. But here's a good question, though. I mean, if Disney bought Marvel for $4 billion, then what would Spider-Man be worth alone as a character?
Being that he is such a high-powered character, I would think that there's a good chance they would spend at least $2.5 billion, at least, maybe $1.5 billion plus some back end, maybe at the low cost, I guess. But
yeah, because you are getting a lot of stuff when you're buying Spider-Man.
Right.
You get you get the merchandising rights. You're getting future movies, games. You're getting all the other characters that go with it.
Well, so Disney already has the merchandising right, or Marvel already has the merchandising rights back. But what I was thinking is, like, that's where it kind of really hurts Sony right now, and that's where they might be like, oh, we'll be nice and we'll give you, a little bit of back end and some exclusive deals on video games and some stuff like that to kind of sweeten the pot, since they have kind of lost out a lot of that revenue the last few years on the video game, or on the market, or the merchandise. Jesus, I can't talk.
Yeah, just something so Sony's not totally left out in the cold.
Basically.
Yeah, and actually, we kind of see that already, where Sony actually has a PS4 game coming, and it's an exclusive PS4 game for Spider-Man. This I think it's coming next year, maybe.
Which is strange, because isn't this the first Sony exclusive one, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, it is. There was a game made by Activision back in 2000, but that did eventually appear on the Nintendo 64, and it appeared also on the Sega Dreamcast. But it was on the PlayStation first, though.
Right. So then that's odd, considering now in the merchandising side, Disney controls Spider-Man. So maybe, and it does look like Sony has a lot to do with this game, so maybe that's what they did, is gave them some game rights to the character and gave them exclusive game rights. That's a very big possibility.
Yeah, probably. It's made the game's being made by a company called Insomniac, which, for people who know anything about video games, they did the Ratchet and Clank series. Okay. Which is very good. I mean, it has a lot of, like, cartoonish elements that a Spider-Man game would have, like a lot of witty humor in it also, and they're fun games, and I'm very curious to see how well they do a Spider-Man game.
In this new game, we talked a little bit about it last week, because the preview did come out at E3, and it looks good. It looks like the best Spider-Man game we've probably either ever had or had in a while, anyway.
Oh, yeah. Probably since that 2000 game back years ago. It was made by Neversoft, which is who did the Tony Hawk games, actually.
Okay, yep. Okay, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So they, but yeah, this looks good. And for the people who see the trailer and wondering what's up with the costume, I'm sure there's going to be some downloadable content with other costume packs in it.
I just seen that today, that there is going to. I don't know if it's going to be downloadable or it's going to be part of the game, but there is supposed to be multiple costumes. Yes.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. So I knew they weren't going to just have the one. You're never going to get that. I think I even seen. I even might have possibly. I thought I seen it. Was a skin for the Spider-Man from the new movie, the Homecoming one, where his homemade suit.
Oh yeah.
I think I've seen that one already as part of the game. So there's already definitely going to be a few, I'm sure, that are even like probably related to all the other movies and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's one costume that actually they actually have trouble putting into a lot of stuff, which is the Amazing Bagman, which is basically Peter borrows a Fantastic Four costume and puts a paper bag over his head, but because Fox owns the rights to the Fantastic Four, they have trouble actually getting the rights to
they'd have to
put
come
it
up
in
with something else.
Yeah. But anyway, like I said, that game is actually looking really good. The whole free roam aspect of Spider-Man actually is gonna be really good. Finally, we're gonna on the PlayStation 4 and these next generation consoles, we're gonna see New York City in that scale as it should be.
Right, and that's what I'm looking forward to as well. Yeah, but to get back to the movie, I think that Homecoming is actually going to surprise a lot of people, and it may even be a bigger movie than they think.
Oh yeah, like I said, there's a perfect storm coming too. I mean, it's summer, kids are out of school. It's going to be we're coming off of 4th of July weekend. It's going to be hot. People are going to want to go to the movies, just soak up some air conditioning.
And depending on how Transformers is received, I don't see it doing too well, considering the last Transformers movie didn't even barely make like 250 stateside. So I don't see this one doing much better than that. And you got Despicable Me 3 coming out the 30th, so that's going to really kill a lot of Cars competition right there. And then when Spider-Man comes out, it's going to be like all over for kids movies and action movies, if you ask me. That's where I think this movie's really going to shine. I think it's going to open in that 150 or better range. I think it's going to do a lot better than the 100 they're saying it's going to do.
Yeah, I'm thinking more 120. That's me. That's just being a little bit more modest.
Right, conservative.
Yeah. Well, 120 million would be good for anybody. Jeez.
Oh yeah, that would be great. But I think it's going to do a lot better next. I think the last one did, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in that 120 to 130 range, somewhere in there. So yeah, I can't see this one doing any less than that, and I have a feeling with the momentum off of Civil War, because Civil War, a lot of that money that movie made had to be from Spider-Man. There's no way that movie would have made that much money otherwise. I don't think, anyway.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of excitement in seeing Spider-Man in that movie.
So, and I think that you got that, plus the fact that they are making sure we know that, this is in the MCU, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people complaining that, they might as well call it Iron Man and Spider-Man because Iron Man's in the whole damn movie. I don't think he is. And you were telling me that you actually had heard a leaked breakdown, and he's not really in the movie all that much, and it was pretty close to what I kind of thought. Yeah,
he's in a couple scenes at the beginning and more towards the end from what I've read. But if you're going to have a Marvel Universe on film, then Iron Man is going to be in a lot of different movies. Right. I mean, he's one of those characters that crops up everywhere.
Yeah, he's a big part of the universe, along with a few others, that are always around. And in the same thing with a lot of the tech that's in the Marvel Universe, if it's not either homemade, it's made by Stark. So
yeah, there's three big industries. There's Fisk Incorporated, there's Stark Industries, and there's AIM.
Is Hammer part of the comics too?
Hammer? I can't remember right now. I think so, yeah.
I think he is, but yeah, anyway, he's not that big. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, it's not like, to me, it's like the people bitched for years. It's like, okay, we like having these movies cross over, but how long is it going to be before we, and John Campea even said this a while back, he's like, how long is it going to be before we sit here and we start wondering, why isn't Iron Man showing up and helping Captain America? Or why isn't Thor showing up and helping, Iron Man with this, or that? It just doesn't make sense. Well, now you're getting that. We're actually getting that. This is actually happening, and I think that's really going to push a lot of the sales. This movie could do even better than the 150, I think it is going to do. So
yeah, and people love Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. Right. They absolutely love it. They love him. And you couldn't have a more perfect actor suited to a role than Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark.
Well, I think Marvel across but that's one thing that not to bring it and make it a DC versus Marvel thing, but that's one thing I think Marvel above and beyond has done better than DC by far is their casting. And they always seem to find the perfect fit for every character. I'm hard pressed to try and think of somebody who doesn't just shine in their parts in these movies. I can't. And this is like so far been one of the best iterations of Spider-Man as far as a lot of the fans are concerned, because a lot of people didn't care for the Garfield version, and I know you're one of those that didn't. I thought it was in the first film. In the second movie, I was just done with the whole thing. But even Kevin Smith pointed out in his review or whatever, Spider-Man's on the phone an awful goddamn lot.
Well, aren't most teenagers on the phone now?
Right, nowadays? And there's the one shot in all the previews of Spider-Man on the phone. And I wonder if that's not making fun of that fact, because there is. You watch the movie, Spider-Man is on his cell phone constantly, and you got to be wondering, where the fuck does he put that thing in his suit?
Yeah, it reminds me of the time I was Batman for Halloween, and I didn't account for where I was going to put my keys. So I'm like. Yeah, I'm like, yeah. Now you know why they have like utility belts.
Exactly. Shark repellent. You never know when that's going to come in handy. But yeah, so I mean, it's just, I think that a lot of the squabbling and the bitching and the pissing and moaning is a very, very small group of between DC fans, and the other part of it is just those comic book nerds that you're just never ever gonna be able to make happy unless you go, shot for shot, frame for frame from a comic book. They're not gonna be happy.
Well, once the movie's released and people start seeing it, and then a lot of that's gonna fall away.
Oh yeah, word of mouth is gonna help this movie big time, and it's already getting a lot of good buzz. A lot of the early screenings are getting very good reviews so far, which is typical. We hear this all the time, don't get me wrong, but you've got the cast alone. You've got Robert Downey Jr., like you said, Tom Holland's back as Spider-Man, and everybody has loved everything they've seen of him so far from what I've heard for the most part. And you also have Michael Keaton as the villain. I mean, come on. That's one thing people have bitched about Marvel having, is a villain problem. I think that's a pretty goddamn good person to bring on to play a hell of a villain.
Oh, yeah. And Marissa Tomei as Aunt May.
Well, right. You bring her back, and yeah.
And for those who say, Aunt May is supposed to be this matronly, older lady, I'm like, it really doesn't make sense for a 15, 16-year-old kid to have an aunt that is a senior citizen.
Right, maybe in the 60s when he was originated, it was no big deal because, like both my parents have like 8 or 9 kids in their family. You know what I mean? So it is no big deal for my oldest aunt to be quite a bit older than my mom and dad, but that's not so common now. It just makes more sense, especially if they're going to have him be, 15, 16 years old or whatever it is, like he is in the movie. She's not going to be that damn old yet.
Yeah. Most of the other cast, honestly, I have to have a scorecard to keep them straight, because a lot of these kids are coming from like these Disney movies, these Disney sitcoms. The Zendaya Coleman. I had no idea who she was.
Right. I kind of knew, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I had to ask my niece who she was. That's how bad it was.
But that's another thing that's got me excited about the movie, is they actually have his his entourage in the movie. He doesn't have hardly any of his entourage or in any of the other movies outside of his love interest in Harry. That's it. Really.
Yeah, you get to see actually him going to high school and actually being a teenager, and that was always kind of the appeal. I'm like, what Peter went through, you went through, and everybody has their couple of homies that they hang out with, and if you tend to hang out with who is most like you too. I mean, the kid, I don't know what the kid's name is. Manuel, his buddy there.
I think so.
Yeah, I can picture Peter Parker hanging out with a kid like that.
Oh, yeah, and he drops that Death Star Lego thing. You're Spider-Man? Can I try the suit on, please? And, that's the other thing. Oh, show me the whole damn movie in the previews. And I don't think they are. I think they're pulling a lot of the Age of Ultron. I mean, yeah, Civil War, they gave a lot away. But they almost had to with Civil War, because it's like, we got Spider-Man in this. This is what you're going to see. Blah, blah, blah. With this, I think they're pulling a lot of the Age of Ultron kind of advertising. If Marvel is in charge of the advertising anyway, because they're showing us all this stuff, but I think majority of it's from the first act. There's a few things from later on, but I think most of what we're seeing is from the first act.
Well, I kind of understand how you cut a trailer and how you cut these TV spots. You have a test screening, and whatever the audience reacts to, that's what you put in the trailer. But at the same time, I think we're only seeing what's stuff in the first act, and they're deliberately they are giving away a few parts, but they're not giving away the whole thing.
Right. Right, and I don't want to get into it too much, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody out there, because I know there's a lot of people out there who don't like spoilers, and they're avoiding a lot of this stuff, so we don't want to talk about it too much. But, it's like you can kind of tell, just personally myself, from anybody who's seen a lot of movies, who's actually written and been involved with actually some kind of filmmaking at some point in his life, you kind of get a feeling and an idea of how the story's going to go and where what is from where. And yeah, I think the majority of what we're seeing is early on. That big incident is the ship scene, and that incident after that, Tony takes away his suit. So from then on till the third act, there's a lot of what we're not seeing there. We're only seeing a little bits and pieces probably from the latter part of the film.
The one scene I do like is when they show him crash the party with the pool, where he skims across the surface of the pool.
See, and I think that's early. I bet that's in like the first scene, one of the first scenes.
Yeah, but that's something a teenager would do, though.
Yeah,
if he was Spider-Man, yeah.
I even watched the behind the scenes making of it, and I probably shouldn't have, but there's so much cool shit in there too that I can't wait to see this movie. I really can't. And I even said, who cares? I don't care if they've showed me everything so far. This looks good. This looks like the Spider-Man movie I've been waiting for. Don't get me wrong, I love Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man to a point. I loved Spider-Man 1 and 2. They're great films. Amazing Spider-Man 1 is okay, but the other two films have sucked. And at this point, this looks like the first real good Spider-Man movie we're going to get besides Spider-Man 2, the original Raimi one.
Well, I think it's going to be the first Spider-Man movie where it gets both Peter Parker and Spider-Man right.
Right, because they always they were close with Tobey Maguire, but he was still just a little too emo.
Yeah. But, he loses Uncle Ben. Like he dies right in front of him. That's going to set anybody off. So,
well, he was emo before that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's like, okay, I'm surprised that didn't set him off to the point where he starts cutting himself if he didn't become Spider-Man. But no, it's like, he's good. Don't get me wrong. Tobey Maguire handled it very well. That is the perfect Spider-Man for that era. It worked. At least those first two movies and a lot of the third film worked. And Amazing Spider-Man, I kind of got what they were doing, but it was too much too soon. And Amazing Spider-Man 2 was just an extreme clusterfuck on the level of Batman and Robin, to the point where it actually makes Batman and Robin look watchable, to my eyes.
Oh man, that is not saying much. Jeez, oh my God, you might want to think about that statement.
If somebody, here's my thing: if somebody turned around and did like a fan cut and cut all of the Electro stuff out. And if they maybe found some deleted scenes that had more to do with Harry and Gwen, then maybe, just maybe, I would like the movie. Because that's what I'm like, is like, you got the movie that could have been the Dark Knight of Spider-Man films, and you ruined it by putting the Riddler in it. Yeah. Jim Carrey's Riddler, no less.
Yeah. I don't understand what the deal is with having the villain start out to be like a greasy-haired nerd.
It's cliche as hell.
Yeah, I mean, usually the heroes and villains are mirror images of each other, but like I said, that's just a I hate to use the word trope, but that's a trope that's really kind of outlived its usefulness.
And unfortunately, just from what I recall from the film, there's no real way you could cut around some of that stuff. That's why I say you'd almost have to cut Electro out of the movie altogether.
Yeah.
Because especially when you get down to the last part where, the itsy bitsy spider bit, my God. And all that shit. How are you going to cut any of that shit out without losing it all? You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know.
Yeah. I think Mark Webb is just not a very good filmmaker.
I don't know if it was his fault so much, because we noticed from the notes that Kevin Feige, that may not have fixed the film, but it would have made it a lot better film. And I think that it was obviously Amy Pascal and whoever else's decision not to follow those notes, and he was probably forced to put a lot of shit in there he didn't want to, is my guess.
Now, you have to put the itty bitty spidery part in. I mean, I love that. Oh my God.
Well, he probably wanted to do the death of Gwen Stacy, because that's what they've been setting up since the first film.
Yeah.
and they made him cram in another villain. And whether they had a contract with Jamie Foxx or what the fuck the deal was, it was like, you got to have this fucking villain in there or whatever. You know, just the same thing with like Venom in the third Spider-Man film, which in actuality they should have just cut out Sandman because he was more redundant than.
Well, they were setting up Sinister Six though. That's what. Yeah, that was the point of that with the Rhino and the Green and Harry Osborn as the Green Goblin and
right.
Yeah, and
I didn't like that part either. Was skipping over to already to go to the second Green Goblin. It's like, why did you do that? You had a chance to fix one of the worst things that was in the first Spider-Man films in my eyes. Was you had the greatest choice for an actor to play the Green Goblin, but what do? Instead of just painting his face green like you shoulda, you put him in a stupid mask. I mean, really.
I kind of accept those limitations of the time.
I guess to a point, but to me it was like, this is the one time I think the comic fans would have let you get away with being semi-cheap, because Willem Dafoe looks like the Green Goblin. You paint him green, give him some pointy ears and a little bit more of a chin and a hood, he looks like the Green Goblin. I mean, you could have made the hood a little bit more techy or something, but yeah, I don't know, and just made whatever was going on turn his skin green, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
That's basically what they did to Electro. Why else is he blue?
Yeah. Other than that, I still think Willem Dafoe was perfect as Norman Osborn.
Oh, yeah, don't get me wrong. Otherwise, that was perfect. That was the only complaint I had was when he had that fucking mask on, because it's like, I want to see his face. Because especially when he's talking to himself, like, in the mirror, and that face that he has, it's like, oh, you get it into it, and you can feel his, emotion and hatred and the craziness. But once he puts that mask on, it's like he's not even there.
Yeah, that's why they have so many actors take masks off, and because they always say it's difficult to act behind a mask.
Right. I think the limit was what they did with not Michael Keaton, Jesus Christ, with Jack Nicholson in the first Batman. I think that's probably about the extreme you can take it with some of these actors like that who are just so fit to these roles, because it's like once you go beyond that, it just becomes a mask, and it's hard to identify the character underneath. There's very few times where I can stop and think where a character has really shined through the makeup very well, and without it being, a menagerie of special effects involved, at least.
Yeah. So, anyway, well, I haven't got much more to say on this.
Yeah,
so.
I think we can probably kill it there. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. If you're wondering how come the show's so clunky, we're actually trying to do this live. This is kind of a test run. We are going to plan to do this live a couple times a week, hopefully coming up here. So stay tuned for information on that. But otherwise, I'd like to thank you for joining me again, Mr. Robb Gallo, who you can find on Robot Shlomo on YouTube and at Robot Shlomo at Twitter, correct?
Yes, I'm the only Robot Shlomo on Twitter and on YouTube, so it's very easy to find.
And of course, you can always find his Midnight's Edge videos on Midnight's Edge, and you can always find us on the Midnight's Edge group. So I'll post those links down below for you guys, and thanks for joining us once again on the Film Buffet Podcast.